Speaking of superheroes this week, there's a brief story before we leave. At the turn of the 20th century, in a small town in southern Italy, there was a little boy named Francesco Forgione. Francesco was born into a very poor family. It was a family of farmers. And from a very young age, Francesco was a shepherd. And they were a very religious family in Italy at the turn of the century, imagine that. Daily parishioners, daily family rosary, very devout family. And little Francesco was also a very, very devout young man. And thought that he, or not thought that he did. He conversed with Jesus and the Blessed Mother and his guardian angel. And he thought that everyone else could too. He didn't really think that it was that big of a deal. He had a very young age, Francesco knew he wanted to be a Capuchin friar. He wanted to be a friar. And so his parents approached the friars and they said, well, yes, we're very interested. We'd like to take Francesco, but he has no education because he's been out in the fields with the sheep. And so Francesco's family couldn't afford a tutor. So his dad got on a boat, came to America, and he got a job, and he sent all that money back to Italy. And Francesco got a tutor, and at 15, he was welcomed into the novitiate of the Capuchin friars. Francesco was a very sickly young man. Matter of fact, at 10, he got typhoid fever. And throughout his whole life, he had major health problems that he always struggled with. And when he was in his novitiate, he had quite a severe bout of these health problems. And it was later recalled by other friars that they couldn't tell if he was sick and delusional during prayer, or if he was actually in spiritual ecstasy. Because someone would come to recall that they would see Francesco slightly floating above his chair. Eventually, Francesco was ordained a priest. And when you become a priest in a religious order, many religious orders, you leave the world behind and you take on a new name. And the name that Francesco chose was Pius, because where he was baptized in Santa Anna Chapel in southern Italy, there were relics there of Pope St. Pius I. And so he chose the name and became Friar Pius. People started to notice a lot of very interesting things about Friar Pius, and later Father Pius, that he had very many spiritual gifts, that he was very good at confession, and people would come from all over the land and get in line for confession. And you say, get up and leave the confession, and be like, what about this? And he knew your sins. And he'd say, you forgot something. And so word started to get around, and many other gifts. It said that Father Pius could bilocate, that he could be in two places at once. Can any of the Avengers bilocate? Okay. Said he had the gift of tongues and the gift of healing. One of the most notorious and fascinating gifts that Father Pius had was Father Pius was given the gift of the stigmata. The stigmata are pains or wounds in your hands, feet, and side that imitate Christ's wounds on the cross. And there have been many stigmatics throughout the ages, most famous of them being St. Francis of Assisi and St. Catherine of Siena. But these stigmata were painful to Father Pius, and he was kind of ashamed of them, and he tried to hide it, but he couldn't, of course, because he was a priest of God. And at the end of World War I, when Europe was scourged, people were looking for a great sign of hope, and people came from all over to see Father Pius, his gifts and his stigmata, as a great sign of hope, the resurrection. Father Pius lived to be 81 years old, and he died in 1963. Many of us throughout the world know him by his Italian name, Padre Pio. And in 2002, Saint Pope John Paul II canonized Padre Pio, and he is recognized as a saint in heaven, God and all his angels. Why do I tell the story of Saint Pius today? Of Padre Pio, excuse me. Tomorrow, Monday, at the Cathedral of St. Joseph in Manchester, the relics of Padre Pio are going to be here in our diocese. And from 8 o'clock in the morning until 5:30 in the evening, his relics will be available for contemplation and veneration. And Bishop Abachi will also be celebrating a special Mass at 6 o'clock tomorrow evening with those relics of Padre Pio. It's a very unique and blessed opportunity for all of us. As Catholics, we have the treasury of the community of saints in heaven petitioning for us here on earth. But people of such integrity, of such valor, of such heroic holiness, in such a close proximity to us in time, is very, very relevant and very, very powerful. So I would encourage anyone tomorrow, if you're looking for something to do, to go check it out. Hope you all have a wonderful week, and God bless.